A building constructed with steel-reinforced concrete can withstand powerful earthquakes. A tree with strong, deep roots can remain standing in the face of many powerful storms. An athlete made powerful by rigorous training can successfully complete a decathlon, a 10-event athletic contest. Well, just as a building, a tree, and an athlete can be powerful, we as Jehovah's people can be powerful by means of our faith. And we will discuss during this talk how faith, a product of Holy Spirit, the most powerful force in the universe, can reinforce, fortify us for any, and I mean any, test, trial, or temptation that comes our way. Now, even though we may not feel powerful physically or emotionally, our faith can make us powerful spiritually. And spiritual power is much more valuable than physical or emotional power. With spiritual power, we can be like Abraham. Please go to Romans chapter 4 and notice what was said about Abraham, beginning in verse number 18. Although beyond hope, yet based on hope, he had faith that he would become the father of many nations according to what had been said, so your offspring will be. And although he did not grow weak in faith, he considered his own body now as good as dead, since he was about 100 years old, as well as the deadness of the womb of Sarah. But because of the promise of God, he did not waver in a lack of faith, but he, notice, became powerful by his faith, giving God glory and being fully convinced that what he, Jehovah, had promised, he, Jehovah, was also able to do.
We're watching Stephen Lett conclude the 2021 Powerful by Faith Convention with the theme, Become Powerful by Your Faith. And what is it with this apparent obsession with Abraham? Stephen Lett is now the 5th speaker in this 3-day convention to invoke Abraham as a model of faith.
Now, as an example, we think of Abraham.
Abraham.
He was quick to obey Jehovah, even when Jehovah asked him to do things that were very difficult, like leaving Ur and offering up his only son.
Abraham was a powerful example of proving his faith by obedience.
Please go to Romans chapter 4.
Of Abraham, Romans chapter 4 and verse 20 says, because of the promise of God, he did not waver in a lack of faith.
About Abraham, Romans 4:20 says, but because of the promise of God, he did not waver in a lack of faith.
But because of the promise of God, he did not waver in a lack of faith.
So yes, now 5 different speakers, all pointing to Abraham: Mark Sanderson, Joel Dellinger, or Mini Lett as I like to call him, Gerrit Loesch, John Ekron, and Stephen Lett, all apparently wanting to remind Jehovah's Witnesses of the need to have faith like Abraham, a man who was willing to kill his son because of voices in his head. And of these 5 speakers, all talking about Abraham, 3 of them all used the same verse, Romans 4 verse 20, Joel Dellinger, Gerrit Loesch, and Stephen Lett. Where is the organization here? Where is the coordination? You would think they would be getting their heads together at some point and doing some sort of continuity check and just making sure they're not treading on each other's toes by repeatedly using the same verse with the same application. But apparently there is no coordination on this year's convention program. I mean, I don't know, you'd have to ask them, but it's almost as though the speakers have just been given their themes, and a few suggested verses that the convention wants to highlight, and they've just gone away and researched their talks and all chosen the same verses to bring out. I don't know what's causing this. All I know is that it's repetition. How can you call this spiritual food guided by the Holy Spirit when they're making the same points over and over again, reading the same scriptures with the same application? And why is Abraham such a worthy role model for Jehovah's Witnesses? Could it be that it's because his story shows that children are expendable or family members are expendable? You can understand why the story of Abraham would be an appealing narrative to a religious leadership that literally demands that families get ripped apart on ideological grounds.